Okay, I think the biggest portion of the meeting tonight will be on the ARE subdivision. This is our third or fourth meeting on this subdivision. It's does create some discussion, so, and I guess it's going to continue. So, Wendy and John, if you could give us your thinking.
Sure. Thank you very much for putting us on the agenda. And it's always fun to come in and work on an application where there's already been a number of meetings. So I just wanted to introduce myself. Wendy Marsh with Hancock Estabrook. And one of my specialties is the SEQR process, State Environmental Quality Review Act. I represent a number of boards throughout the state going through the SEQR process. I also represent a number of applicants on complying with SEQR. So the county reached out to me when, after one of the meetings where there was a question on, well, what should be happening with the SEQR process. And one of the first things that I asked was about the whole development project itself. And I learned that there was a generic environmental impact statement that was actually completed for the entire park. And what that is that's, I'm sure you're used to doing part one of an EAF and a part two and then issuing a negative declaration. That's probably how you generally handle SEQR on projects. And an environmental impact statement is much farther along in the SEQR process. And essentially what an environmental impact statement is a pretty large, John brought the notebooks for what's really involved in an environmental impact statement. And what you do on these larger parcels is you do what's called the generic environmental impact statement for a large development parcel when you're not really sure exactly what's going to happen with it. And you look at the environmental impacts that are anticipated that you know are going to happen. You know there's roads going in there. You know the parcels are going to be subdivided. You know there's going to be sewer and those type of issues. And in fact, I'm actually working with a municipality out in the Buffalo area doing exactly a generic environmental impact statement, just like was done here. So this one was completed in 2012 and 2013. It was finalized in 2013. And it's a document that was put together by the county with input from a number of agencies, including the town of Lincoln. So when you have that generic environmental impact statement, it changes the lens for SEQR. It changes what you as a board is going to look at for future development of that park. And what your job under SEQR is going to be to say, well, did that generic environmental impact statement look at those environmental impacts, or did it not? And if it did, then there's no further SEQR that's going to be required from this board before you make a decision. And if the environmental impacts were not included in that generic, then you have to decide whether or not a supplement is required, whether or not there's another report that's required specific for a project that's going in there. So again, I'm late into the game coming in here, but I know that there was the discussion between the subdivision and the potential LISTEC project. And since this was before the board the last time, the county has rescinded its SEQR process on the LISTEC project because there's no agreements on that, and that hasn't been finally developed. Now, I will say that the county also needs to go through the same process that I'm talking to you guys about as far as the lens through the environmental impact statement. So in addition to talking to you as the town, I'm certainly talking to the county as far as what the SEQR process that they'll be going through, because it's just a little different. It's not your traditional one. So what's before this board is the 5-lot subdivision, and I'm sure we'll talk about the details on that. But on the SEQR side, really the environmental impacts associated with a subdivision in and of itself, just dividing the property, have been discussed in the generic environmental impact statement. And John will talk a little bit about how that impact statement was put together and some of the details that are in there. Now, when future projects come before the town for approval, such as the LISTEC project, if that comes to fruition, or another type of actual project that's going to happen, you'll have to do the same analysis to say, well, was that covered into the generic or was it not? And if it wasn't, that's where you'll be looking at the environmental impacts associated with those specific projects as they come forward. Any kind of questions on the big picture on seeker?
Well, it deals with the whole process.
Sure.
This generic environmental review is really, and I asked the other board members the first time that we've actually heard about this, and it seems like it's a huge stretch. We have subdivided 2 parcels out of this ARE park.
Yep.
We had a seeker review, we had a public hearing, everything went very smooth. And we feel that we should continue on that venue. I know you've got 5 parcels you want to subdivide.
Yep.
I and other board members here, I think we can see where they stand, but would prefer that there be 2 subdivisions. This big lot divided into 2. And then we work each new facility or new proposal that comes on a separate basis, so that we know how much land they require, property they require, what the requirements are for sewer and water, rather than saying, okay, we're going to divide this up into 5 parcels, and then you're going to come back to us and say, we need to modify this in another way. That's a waste of our time. And we're, we work very well. I've been on this board for over 30 years, and I've never been in a situation where we've been in a sort of a battle between our thinking.
Sure.
And you got to realize that we are a rural community. We have some, people here that are very knowledgeable about some of these processes, and I feel that this board is doing a very good job. We just need to communicate.
Sure.
There needs to be communication, and
Understood.
I don't know how to emphasize, we've talked about that for at least a half a dozen meetings, that we need to have a communication between the county and our board or our town.
Sure.
And that's a big problem. Unless, until we kind of correct some of these things, we aren't going to move forward. But I do suggest that, and we can tally the board here, but I think, if we were to subdivide this in 2 parcels, we could probably move this process forward very quickly.
Can you explain how you see the two parcels being set up, just so that we understand what you're...
Okay, you got one big parcel with the landfill and everything.
Yep.
Okay, let's cut this off, whatever you're gonna subdivide, those 5 parcels. Let's just make that 1 parcel.
They can't, because it's not adjoining. It's 5 separate areas.
But it's subdividing off what we got from the whole landfill.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
rather than taking and I think there are 3 or 4 different parcels around the perimeter that have been identified as the Air Park industrial parcels, which currently still in the county's hands. So the whole process is, if I'm hearing you right, basically what you're saying, instead of trying to divide this into 3 to 5 acre lots, which may or may not be the final configuration,
Exactly.
you have a company come in, you're saying let's take the greater parcels and divide them maybe into 2 parcels, one on the east side, one on the west side, and then as individual projects are identified and the acreage for each of those parcels is identified, come back to the board and say, okay, we've got an XYZ company coming in, they need 12 acres, here's the lot we've suggested, etc., here's the details. A simple process, make sure that secret's been done.
That isn't what
He's-
he's
he's-
proposing.
That's what we're saying.
He's proposing taking the 147.3 acres or whatever it is and making that 1 parcel,
Yep,
turning that all over to the IDA.
yep,
Yeah. So we get that process moving.
okay.
Right now, we're in stalemate.
Yeah,
And that way there, that frees the IDA up.
yes,
They can say, okay, we have a 12-acre parcel, we can subdivide this off as 12 acres. It's already in their hands.
okay.
So it's saying that the landfill, you're separating the other parcel from the landfill, is that,
Yes.
Yes.
because that's not currently done?
Correct.
Okay.
This is sort of the next step in this whole R Park process. So I think
Yeah.
okay.
That's
Well,
your
Yeah,
suggestion,
that's what
right?
I'm.
So you're saying separate out the parcel that is going to be transferred to the IDA
Right.
into one larger parcel as
One larger
opposed to,
I mean, we've already subdivided two pieces already.
right,
And that, that would, if we hadn't subdivided those two pieces, it would be part of this bigger puzzle.
and can I ask you the timing on that? Because I know in the generic, there's a couple that are specifically excluded because they were underway, which is why you didn't have to deal with the generic. Was that in around 2012 that those subdivisions
I
happened?
don't think the Johnson brothers,
Johnson Brothers, I think, might have been.
Might have.
Johnson Brothers that was the first.
that was the
parcel.
first
Okay.
one.
That was
Yep.
before we actually had finished the
Yep.
GEIS.
Right.
So that was the first one, that was sort of one that had to be expedited.
Right.
Yep.
To
Right.
get that one going.
And then
Yeah.
we just did one this year that's to the north of that, to the north of Johnson Brothers.
Okay,
We did like 3 I can't remember what the acreage
Well,
was.
the 13 acres was for the solar.
Oh, yeah, but that, we're not even considering that,
Yeah.
because that's still, the county still owns that. We didn't really subdivide that
Correct,
off.
so there was not a subdivision associated with that?
No,
No,
Okay,
and I don't think there was another one that was completed, was there?
yes,
Was it
across the
what you
road
just
from the fire training building.
Was that one completed that was where the original?
Kind of, it's an L shape.
Yeah, that was where the greenhouse was gonna go. The greenhouse.
Yes, where the
Yeah.
greenhouse is gonna
So
go.
that one was completed.
Yes.
What was that
We
project
approved
called?
that.
What was that project? What did you guys call it, just so that I can have the terminology when I go back?
Well, it was the greenhouse
The
project.
greenhouse project,
Greenhouse
okay.
project.
And
Okay. I wasn't sure that one was actually completed.
we did the subdivision.
You may not have filed the map, but they.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no map that was filed, I don't think, for that one yet.
And it certainly is possible that that project didn't go through the proper procedure with the generic environmental impact statement, because when I started to have the conversation with the county as far as how the process should be moving forward in light of the fact that you do have this generic, a lot of eyes opened up as well. So, it's one of those things where I think it's a little bit of education on everybody's side. The effort was gone through in 2012 and 2013 to really take a look at those base environmental impacts, and everything really should be building off there. So, even if we set it up as far as the 2-lot subdivision, it is important for the town and the county to understand that as those are re-subdivided into smaller parcels, when you actually have projects coming
Right.
forward, you're still going to, that generic environmental impact statement is gonna be kind of part of everybody's life while there's the development of that area.
But would the fact that they didn't use it and didn't present it to us, would just make it null? Because they didn't use it? It
Yeah.
wasn't presented here to us that it already existed.
Sure.
We just assumed. that
I'm not
we had-
sure they knew.
Yeah, and just,
If I could just to kind of back up a little bit, and the process for an EAS, a GEIS, procedurally calls for a very public process. And I was deeply involved in it, so I do know that the county made sure that they went through procedurally, they had public hearings, they did a scoping session. And to be honest with you, going through the procedure, even down to the final public hearing on the final GEIS, I actually got the transcript out in the truck. Nobody showed up, and I mean, it was advertised in the papers and.
Yeah, but doesn't that send a message? Yeah, it does send a message. We get people show up here and it's advertised and it does send a message. And that's the message that I'm sending is not the communication that needs to be.
And I guess my only thought there is, the town supervisor is on the solid waste committee, which was in charge of this, and so I guess, I understand the communication, and I understand it more now than I did, a couple months ago, and I, trust me, as we go forward, this will make sure that.
We had the 5 parcel subdivision map in front of us.
Yeah.
And we had 3 government officials here. And they were asked directly, is there anyone designed to be in any one of these? And there was no comment, nor was there any response. At the end of our meeting, we looked at our mail. We had a letter from John Becker that said that Listec was set for this this parcel, that's gotta send a message too, that, you know, what's going on here?
Okay.
And, you know, we're looking out for our own
I understand that
community.
totally, I really do.
You know, and we have to.
Oh, sure.
And we are a rural community, and I've said this many times, that we're looking for good fits. We're not trying to,
Sure.
you know, avoid prospective units from coming in, but we certainly want good fits.
Sure.
Because we want to be proud of it.
Yes.
And-
None of your good fits, though, that you're talking about or calling good fits,
Right.
need industrial zoning. Anything that you're considering a good fit would fit perfectly in commercial. The biggest mistake the town made was allowing that to be zoned industrial, because that opens up the floodgates to all these nasty things.
Yeah.
And I feel it was kind of done through not the best process. You know, you were told we're going to do these things, and it's not what happened.
Can I just want to ask, back in 2012 or 13, when they did the seeker, did we relinquish to them to be the lead? Or we did?
You did?
It's in our minutes somewhere where we did it?
I don't know if it's specifically
I don't
in
think
your
we
minutes,
did.
but I
I
know
don't
it was.
remember it.
Yeah,
it
on
was-
behalf of the town, the town itself. So, with that, it's a similar lead agency, just like normal lead agency. So there would have been 30 days to object, and the town did not object, so.
I don't think we got anything. I've been the chairman for
Yeah.
years. and-
I know that the
and
town.
we
the
never-
town-
we
the
never-
town
we never
supervisor.
addressed it. Well, the town supervisor, not the planning board.
Mhm.
We are, and it should come through here, not through the town supervisor. Am I correct?
No, the town supervisor is the appropriate entity for a generic environmental impact statement.
And why do all the rest of them we get?
Because the nature of a generic, there isn't any specific project.
Like when the town of Peterborough or Smithfield was doing the solar wind, with the wind power,
Mhm.
we got asked if they could be the lead, and we, yeah. Monzville's the same thing. And they were-
I don't know if that was a generic environmental impact
Well, I don't
statement.
know what it was, but
Right.
we said that you could be lead agent.
Sure, in various
We
other
never-
projects.
What I'm saying is, we never got anything formally here at that time. It never went through this board, and I'm sure you can go through all of our minutes.
Sure.
And you won't see it.
I
So
think-
that would make that legal, or no correspondence or anything to this board.
Well, and again, I know.
I'm just asking if
Yeah,
that's,
I know it went to the town board, and I do know that recent discussions indicate that the county has learned their lesson. And maybe it's a good way to put it, and understand that from a local standpoint, this town planning board needs to be informed of everything going on, and there does need to be communication, so.
from here
Yeah, I
forward.
mean,
From here forward, yes.
We're very open to
And I will tell you, just as an example, so there's the Clockville Water Project that the county's advancing. The secret process for that has started, and the county made sure when the letter was sent out, instead of the normal 30 days, they made sure they wanted it to be 45 days for a response and to come to you guys, so that you guys had an opportunity to receive the correspondence, look at it, and voice your opinion on lead agency status. So, and again, so I will say that recent discussions really have indicated, I think the folks at the county level, understand your concerns and want to make sure they address it in the future.
Well, we're not only looking out for our concern, but really the whole Madison County.
Sure.
I mean, we're looking out as a county and the nature of what we have here and what we want to maintain, the resources and so forth.
Sure. Very well, sure.
I just wanted to ask a question or a comment, I guess, really. So my understanding of the generic environmental impact statement is that it's not valid to be used in conjunction with type 1 facilities. If it's a type 1 facility, then we go back and we do an additional environmental impact study at that point in time.
Actually, that isn't accurate. The question is whether or not whatever is being proposed was discussed in that generic. So it doesn't matter whether it's a type 1 action, because once you get to the generic environmental impact statement process, you're beyond, the type 1 and a positive declaration. So the question becomes whether or not whatever's in the future is contemplated was contemplated in that generic.
Okay, I didn't think you could consider type 1 facilities in a generic.
You can.
And did you do that, John?
Yes.
Is there a section in there on type 1 facilities?
Well, the project was considered a type 1, and that's why an environmental impact statement, albeit a generic one, was done.
Right, I didn't think that the generics were good for the type ones, though. I thought it had to be more specific than
That's a
that.
horrible way.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole point of a generic environmental impact statement, there's an intent that they're going to be larger projects.
Right,
So, so there is no exclusion for type 1 actions.
okay, so it really comes down to DEC approval for type 1 at that point. Okay.
Well, actually, it doesn't really go down to DEC because everything will go through, whether or not that generic covers it. So,
Who determines
Right, but it still
whether or
has to
not
go through the
generic covers
permitting.
it?
It has to go through the permitting application. with
yes,
DEC.
yes, and to answer your question, who makes that determination? The person that's making the approval. So for example, if there's a project that comes before the planning board, and if the planning board decides that, you know what, that generic doesn't even talk about it,
Correct.
then this planning board gets to make a determination whether or not there needs to be a supplemental environmental impact statement specific for that project. So it goes back to whoever is making the decision on the project, gets to make that determination.
So our poor planning board needs to become an expert on 783 pages of this generic environmental impact statement.
It's really not that cumbersome.
I have a question that might mitigate all of that. Does it expire? Does it expire?
I know, it does seem to be old at this point. You know, the generic environmental impact study is 5 years old. So does that change over time? I mean, they can't be good forever as we find out more things about the environment, protected areas and features. That's gonna change a little
How
bit.
dynamic are they?
And on that issue of how old, whether or not the information is expired, that is a determination that the board would make, whether or not there's conditions that have changed such that there needs to be a supplement.
Okay, great.
So, they don't expire by their own terms, but
Right.
if all of a sudden their conditions are very different at the time, then this board could make a determination that there needs to be a supplement just based upon
Would
the
it be
finding.
an addendum or an actual?
It would be a supplemental environmental impact statement.
So the generic would stand and we would just.
Supplement.
add on,
Yep, and that's where
just to
the
clarify.
Yep, the idea with the supplement is they would be project-specific environmental impact statements. That's, the purpose for the generic is to look at all of the general type of environmental impacts that are associated with all of them, the roads, the sewers, that type of. But then when there's a specific project that's going to have specific details, that's where you need the supplement to look at that specific use. So that's the intent of it.
If I can interject, I think we can all agree that List Tech was not specifically considered in the GEIS. John, did you bring some maps, drawings that show the subdivision issues that were explored in the GEIS process?
Well, again,
Could you share that with the planning board, please?
as far as maps were concerned, what is mapped out are the various sites, which I think everybody has basically seen. What's that?
Sure, got it.
You got a big map? Look at that.
Yes.
This is what they submitted in the application.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So that's the current, what I was asking is John to explain to the board the subdivision as it was considered in the GEIS.
Okay, so, what did you,
3, 4, 5, there's 5 of them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 9. This is not one, is it?
it is,
The other 1, the other 3.
so what this does is it identifies 5
Yep,
specific
so 1,
parcels, right?
2, and then 3, 4, and then actually it's showing on 5A and 5B.
This is the one we just approved. This right here, this dotted line.
Oh, okay. That's the greenhouse one that we were talking about
Yes.
earlier. Okay.
This is what we're interested in right here.
So really what
And how
the,
this matches to this.
so what the GIS did, you know, and this was 5 years ago, so the lands that were basically to be set aside for the art park, were basically, it's this, the big one here. There was actually, you'll notice, just if you line this up, okay? So this parcel right here, all right, originally, the GIS contemplated this whole parcel all the way down to the creek, all right, on the east side. What the GIS really brought forth was there were some, because of the slope and because of some of the cultural resource studies that were done, in consultation with the Indian Nation, et cetera, it was really decided that that land to the east, you know, that line, frankly, wasn't appropriate for the development. So that's where some of the refinements came from, you know, some of the original GEIS work. Since then, you know, there have been, you know, again, a couple other minor changes.
They took this out, the center of this out.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I don't know why that's not included, because I do believe that's still considered part of the developable art park, and maybe that was a future consideration. And actually, and I think
what they did was, I think they took it out when they put the solar array in there.
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, the solar arrays right there, isn't it?
I think
And then that'll be retained by the county, I'm
And
sure.
that's retained by the county, thank you for,
Yep.
yeah, now that I'm looking at that, you're 100% right. So, I mean, it envisioned, and there was early on in this process, there was a map that was put together that was purely speculative on what it might look like, you know, when a final subdivision was done. And Bill, as you pointed out, who knows what those final parcels are gonna be like, to be honest with you. And it talks extensively in here about, you know, various potential businesses that could be brought in. And again, back then it was, I think one of the businesses the idea was looking at back then was a meat processing facility.
There was a slaughterhouse.
Right, so that was kind of, okay, that's a potential that was included. There was certainly a greenhouse, there was some solar that was contemplated. So really trying to think about what kind of businesses might be attracted to this and what kind of environmental impacts might be included. And again, the whole subdivision process was contemplated because it was envisioned.
But all of those businesses that you mentioned, again, don't need to be industrial. None of those are industrial.
No, that's where we come in a little bit, I think, and we should be, is offering suggestions on types of industry, not industries, but facilities that might come into our town.
Mhm.
A greenhouse is a wonderful, it utilize, one of the selling points is you got the gas, you got the energy. So, this builds some of this around the energy, issue. It's a great resource, and so either you sell it back as electricity to National Grid, or you utilize that in the units that come in. And I think that's where a lot of us are questioning some of the ideas, because, and Kip was here in the first meeting, the big selling point is the energy. So let's utilize that energy.
Yes.
That's what the landfill is producing us, that's what it's giving us. And if you need to put another generator in there to utilize that electricity and sell it back to the National Grid, I think you would get overwhelming approval of that. So.
And again, I think I sit back and observe.
Yeah, right.
So,
well, I know.
And I truly think from some of the more recent conversations that frankly, a lot of those at the county have learned a lesson.
Well,
The best approach.
I was in the university world for many, many years, and I always felt that, the more ideas you had,
Yes.
the better the products that could come out. But when you limit the ideas or the people creating the ideas, then I think you run into issues.
And I do think, kind of having been involved in this for 10 years now, it's been an interesting process. Grueling at times. But I think overall, I think it's a great asset to the community, done correctly.
Correctly, yeah.
And I think everybody's just trying to take a step back now and say, okay, what's the best way to make sure the best things happen for the town and the county, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's, in the setting that we live in, we gotta consider that.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of our people that move here is, for the setting that we have.
Sure. No, understood.
It's,
Understood.
Is that a possibility that you make that all, we're subdivided each by parcels? I mean, and make it 143 acres. I mean, that's exactly what they're asking for, minus
Sure.
whatever this was.
Yeah, see, and again, we'll obviously take that back to the county,
Yeah.
that's your thought. What I assume is the case, though, is the county needs to retain ownership for this, for the solar. The county needs to have access through here, which is why those are two separate parcels. And then maybe this one can be a large parcel as opposed to separate. But, because they're not contiguous, it would be difficult just to have everything go to the IDA, because I assume that's probably going to be their answer to say, well, we don't want the IDA to own this, we need access through here. So, what we may have to come back with is there's 1, 2, 3, 4 separate lots that need to go to the IDA for their purposes. But, that's why they're larger, is just because that parcel's out what the county needs. And
I guess what we're saying is put everything on the plate now.
Okay.
So that we aren't backtracking
I got you
again
now.
and again.
Okay. That makes sense.
Let's think this through.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then when you wanna take 5 acres out of here, you come back to us and say,
Yeah.
okay,
exactly.
Yeah.
Here's the project,
Right.
here's who it is.
Right.
they need 5 acres,
Yep.
we'll
Okay.
subdivide it out for you.
But the big difference at that point, it'll be the IDA. Because the whole sole purpose of getting these larger lots is to get them the IDA so that they can come in hand with the developer to say, this is what we're looking for,
Yeah.
and then that's.
That's what we're asking here, is
Okay.
to get this so that we can move ahead.
Sure.
Yep.
Rather than be in conflict.
I think that's progress.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's.
I mean, if they can.
Conflict with the scariness of the unknown, that's what started it all.
What's that?
The conflict with
Exactly.
the scariness, they were all unknown
I
of what
understand.
you wanted to put there.
Sure.
Like proposing and potential.
See, if you
We wanna
have,
know
continue this 5
and
parcels,
not be
you're gonna
hazardous to our world.
you're gonna continue to create mistrust, because people are gonna say, well, you got something already planned for that, why didn't you tell us? This way, like the Johnson, it was just a perfect scenario where we could utilize the energy, and it was a long-term family business. I mean, it's just perfect for this, and no,
That's a great opportunity.
yeah, right, it is, and they're great people.
And I would see moving forward, let's say this 33-acre parcel goes into IDA. We were able to get the subdivision, IDA owns it, then they would be coming in with the subdivision, and that's when the public would know exactly what the project is, what's the size of it.
Right.
Here's the actual application, and then, I have no choice but to go back to the seeker issue. Then the question would be was that project something that was contemplated
Right,
here?
I mean-
And then you'd be looking at the project, and the subdivision would be kind of minor compared to your review of the project for, the smaller parcel that would come out of these larger ones.
Most of what I've seen was a GEIS, quite frankly, in a case like this is, most every project is gonna require some kind of a supplemental.
Right.
There will be issues, some may be small, easy to deal with, some may not be. So I think it becomes, again, a tool. I'm sorry you guys didn't know about this, I really I thought the world did about this. That's why.
Well, it was your world for a while, 10 years, right?
But quite honestly, I mean, they spent a lot of effort on this, and there's a lot of good information. It's a good basic tool to work with, to help you guys, to then determine what further do you need to do? What are the further impacts that, need to be considered. So again, I think what you'll see is on a regular basis, as these things come in, as you guys are comfortable with them, you know, you'll see that you'll come up with a supplemental.
How many copies of that are floating around?
Boy, there were a lot of them. I know the counties.
We'll get you as many copies as you want,
How many-
because it'll become a living document as this is
I
developed.
think one at one point was even delivered to the town, but I'll give you.
I don't think we ever got a
Okay.
copy of it.
Would you guys like, new copies of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we,
And that way, that would give us a chance, when somebody comes in, they'll give us a chance
Absolutely.
You need
to
it.
look through it and
You need
study
it.
it.
and then public access too.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, there should actually, in fact, I think there was one delivered down at one point, but where that may be.
Well, that's all water over the dam because.
Let's start fresh and say.
Yeah, exactly.
If you guys got these,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure that there's one here, you know, at the town, so people have got the thing as a reference, because that's really what it is, it's a reference document.
Right, I mean, even, now that should have popped up when we did the Johnson subdivision.
Wasn't done yet.
No, it wasn't done.
Yes,
Wasn't-
this one,
wasn't
this one
really-
it should have.
Where it should have popped up is,
Oh, that one, okay.
but with Johnson Brothers,
Yeah, right.
no, that was actually,
Before, okay.
yeah, it was right
And
about.
and you'll see it, you'll see a discussion in there to explain why it was excluded, why the
It was actually.
Yeah, you'll see in the text there that it was discussed.
It was actually, you know, contemplated in the GES, but GAS wasn't done complete yet.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why that process is. Yeah, it really is a living document.
So it sounds like we're gonna go back and talk about the other options to make this less,
Well, to
Less
make
thought.
it smoother
And-
and actually make it work.
I guess my theory is, if you make these parcels big enough, no company's gonna come in
Exactly.
and take 33 acres
No.
or 73.
or 70.
No, I mean, you're gonna have this one with some sort of company or whatever, and it's gonna be it's gonna be another subdivision.
Yes.
And that's, we do that all the time, I
If we
mean.
can make this one.
Yeah,
I mean,
this
that's-
one looks like the one that we have some, and I do want to answer the question, because I'm assuming that the county wants to retain ownership and the county needs access, but I will confirm that, just so that there's logic why these are set up. You know, so there is the understanding that
You
the
guys
reason
want to consider it once and for the greater.
Right.
for the greater one to get it into the
Yeah,
IDA.
exactly.
And then the step.
You know, I would ask the board members to voice, you know, I've been speaking and Doug has to make sure we're all in agreement here.
We're all in agreement, and just like you said, it creates, in the eyes of the public, why do they want to subdivide into 5 lots?
Well, because they're separate. I mean, if
Yeah,
it was
but-
one continuous big 143 acre parcel, they would do it all in one. But you got, I don't know, 70 some acres down here, you've got 20 some here, 16 over there, and 30 some there. You know,
What I'm saying,
what they're doing is they're taking the land that they can't use for anything else. You know, there's no clay on it,
yeah, they're out of cover material,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, just a clarification. There is clay on this land. And the objective is, before that is developed, the clay will be mined off so that the landfill has the use of that clay. So,
So
just
this
so everybody
might be
understands.
40 years before anybody even comes in there.
It
You
could
gotta
be.
wait till you take the clay off.
Well, no, if the, at least the concept is, if one of these parcels is
You'll
Be
wait,
utilized.
you'll strip it. and-
operations will go in there, strip the clay, stockpile it, and then have it for use, because that's very valuable to the landfill. So just, so everybody understands.
Which
That's a
they
good
basically
reason.
did that, they did that on that parcel back there already.
Some of it, the one over here, it was actually done for this last expansion, yes.
Right,
The one right next to the road.
Now, we have a farmland protection program, and we have some of the best land on the earth in this township. And some of this is farmland. How does that equate in this whole, is there any consideration that some of this could be put back to productive farmland?
I mean, they're renting most of that out now.
Yeah, I mean, it's all leased out now.
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I wish I could,
Yeah.
but I honestly can't.
But anyways, that's another part of the equation
Sure.
that, you know, certainly we're considering is, yeah, we spent a lot of time, we got grant money from New York State, and one of our objectives was to protect some of this farmland, because once it's gone,
Yep.
we're not making any more farmland. So anyways, that message in my mind ought to go back to, you know, if there's an opportunity to save some of this for productive farmland for as long as we can, you know, maybe eventually it would change over 40 years or whatever, but, you know, I think we need to think long-term here, how this is gonna be used.
And just again to clarify, to answer your question, the main purpose for the subdivision is to be able to transfer those parcels over to the IDA that the county doesn't need to retain. So that's why they're set up in that way, because there will be a transfer of ownership from the county to the IDA for those larger parcels.
Okay, and you said if a parcel is sold, they're gonna strip it to stockpile of clay.
The objective, if there's useful clay on it, and there is on a lot of these parcels, then they would mine that clay and stockpile it.
What effect will that have on the environmental impact study then? Is it gonna be done before or after the property, after the land is stripped?
Actually, I believe the GIS does contemplate the mining.
Being mined.
Yep, of that soil.
So you got
with the proper regulations to make sure that, you know, runoff, et cetera, as well.
and
Yep.
erosion.
And, you know, the landfill operates under a speedies permit. It's the nature of the business up there, you know, with soil, but yeah, I mean, that has been contemplated. And just as a, you know, that little parcel, the L-shaped parcel, or the greenhouse. Again, that was another lesson learned, I think, by both the county and the IDA. They unfortunately, I believe, lost that project because this process hadn't been completed, and it, you know, kind of held the process up, and they got, whoever was developing the project kind of moved on. So I know
That would happen in any of these.
Yeah.
Even after we do this, if this wasn't divided into a 3-acre parcel and it's all they wanted, it would still happen here. We may lose it, because it's not, this isn't like a one down here in Canastota where you walk up and it's already subdivided into 5-acre lots and it's got all the roads in and the sewers in.
But if it's already in the IDA's hands, and the procedure's been set up to come before the board, you know, to get approved, that's a lot. What they hadn't done yet was transfer the land process, you know.
Yeah.
So
So
that was,
it'll make it easier.
it was the legal process of transferring the actual property to the IDA before the, you know, the whole subdivision, so.
Yeah, it gets rid of a layer to make it a little bit simpler, and we'll
Two, that didn't take any shorter time when we subdivided that than it would have after we do this now, because
It's
it
still
was
gonna
big,
take
big, big.
months.
It's gonna take that time that
Oh,
it
yeah.
took. So
yeah,
they
no,
lost it.
understood.
Not for that reason, they lost it for another reason,
Yeah.
not that it wasn't subdivided, because it didn't, that's how long it would take.
It actually, yeah, it was the transfer.
The
ownership transfer, but it wasn't the subdivision process.
Yeah. Because it adds a different layer if the IDA isn't able to say that, gee, we own the property to even start the process, so.
That's all.
But the greenhouse idea is still, in my mind, a good idea, and that's why I suggested to Kip that they continue to move in that direction.
Yeah.
You know, put out another RFP
Yes.
for a greenhouse. I mean, there's ample opportunity, and as time grows on, more of these types of greenhouses are gonna be,
Yeah.
you know, and they can use the energy, that's the other.
Yes. Yep. I think we're a little clearer this evening now.
Yeah.
At least we are.
Yeah, that's great. Well, now you're the messenger. right?
Yes, we-
Okay.
we're-
To be
yes.
honest with you, we were tasked with coming and discussing and frankly coming back with a message, you know,
Yeah.
to say, let's see if we can.
Yeah, I think that would be smooth sailing, at least getting it to the IGA, and then we can have a public hearing and
Sure.
move ahead.
Sure.
So we'll get the additional information, Jim, to you as far as the clarification
Yeah.
on the lots, and
That's
then
fine.
we'll see what happens for next month.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
And we'll also get you copies of the generic,
I will get some produced.
so that you can have that, because it'll be relevant moving forward, so we also wanted to at least start that discussion, so that, you know, when there is the next project coming forward, that, you know, at least the groundwork has been way for
Yeah,
moving
and,
forward.
I guess I would also send the message to IDA that, get everything on the plate.
So that's one thing I wanna make sure you have everything.
You're right, yeah,
I
yeah,
understand that.
yeah.
All right. we'll
So
do
we're
that.
not, okay, now changing and so forth.
Got it.
And if it takes them 2 months, let's do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of sense.
Anything else?
No,
Any other messages we should take back?
I guess I have a couple questions. Is it okay?
Put an Amishman on there.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, can you kind of explain the IDA? I'm lost on that.
Well, it's
Like who owns it or who runs
I'll
it?
let Wendy
Yeah, Wendy.
Okay, great. I'm sure maybe other people know, but I'd still like to know.
That would be, it's a separate entity, so the industrial development is an agency.
Okay.
Agency.
Okay.
So what they would have ownership of that property.
Okay, so who, is that like a state thing, a
No,
county thing?
it's a Madison County Industrial Development Agency.
Madison,
So
so
it's
Madison
actually-
County is responsible, correct?
They have their own,
Oversees it.
they have their own board.
Right.
I think Madison County provides some funding, but they operate under their own authority and separate board.
So like who owns it or how does it?
Well, I mean, it's a
go?
public entity, so nobody owns it. I mean,
It's a board, so
it's
they.
a typical industrial development agencies, very typical in counties.
Okay, and so like Madison County gives them money and.
I believe-
Manages it, you're asking.
Yeah, I guess manages.
Well, they provide funding, but again, the IDA has their own separate board of directors. What's that?
Okay, so like now when you're saying transferring like this land to the IDA, do they have to purchase it?
Yes, actually, they do.
So the county would be
purchase it.
selling it to the IDA.
Okay.
And then the
And
IDA
So
And
they-
then the IDA sells it to,
to developers.
Whoever they
Yeah,
want.
so
so it
it's.
goes back on the tax.
West side lane.
So it goes from the county to like an independent person.
Well,
Or independent
Agency.
Agency.
Yes. And then the idea with that is that the industrial development agency finds,
And they can
Developers to come in.
send it or sell it
and
to.
then they sell it, and then that land goes back on the tax roll.
Right, but they can sell it to anybody they want.
Yes.
With planning board approval, et cetera.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't
some
sound
other
like,
limitations.
it sounds like there's too many avenues, like,
Dropping the responsibility.
yeah, that no matter how we feel, it doesn't matter. I feel like.
Well, I don't think that's true,
I
because
don't think that's true either.
Okay.
legally,
Anymore.
they have, yeah.
Okay.
They can't just go out, I mean, legally, they.
This board has to
This
approve.
board has to
What the
approve
use is.
what the
Okay.
use is.
Because I
But
can
if
understand, like, if they have,
somebody
like, they must have something in mind, if they want 5 acres for this and 12 acres for, I mean, I don't know the numbers. I'm
Yeah, but
just-
there's no 5 acre, those. these are
Exactly, I'm just
large
picking up
ones. Yeah,
numbers, right,
yeah.
but, I mean,
So
it seems like they'd have something in mind.
So there are a lot of things that are being contemplated, Kip Hicks is the IDA director, is always out marketing, trying things. Right now, there's nothing specific, and I can say that, unequivocally.
So how do they know what size parcels they
Well,
want?
but again,
Essentially,
that's
this
where
this
we're-
is all of the parcels
This is
that,
all of the
that the
parcels.
county doesn't.
We're trying to eliminate that stuff.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, so they're not trying to right now divide it into small little,
like 5 acres.
5 acre
These
parcels.
are the larger parcels
what we're
that,
gonna make sure is that this is all the land that's available in the
I would
RFR.
think 110.
So someone that comes forward and says, I wanna buy 10 acres,
Yes.
that sale, if they don't approve what they're gonna put on that 10 acres, they're not gonna wanna buy that land.
Exactly.
And they won't,
Exactly.
exactly.
you're
But are
exactly
they,
correct.
that's before, if someone buys the property and they have a plan of what they want to do with it.
Yep.
Now they're coming before our board and we say, no, you don't want it, they already own that property. So they're gonna push and prod till they
I
get,
don't, but I don't
but
think,
they won't do that.
but I don't
No,
think.
they
you're-
won't.
That's where the too many Kip sells it, or whoever sells it, now it's out of his responsibility.
But he's not
And he
gonna, the
dropped it down to us
IDA will
little-
not sell a parcel to an individual on speculation.
And nor would a person-
But they might have their plan and
So
just
they-
gonna steamroll, that's where,
No, I mean,
the
it will always-
proposal and
it always has to
potential
come
is
back before this
unknown
board.
words.
No, I understand.
Any business that goes up there
Better be buying it.
has, just let me finish, so everybody's clear on this, because you've all got different opinions on it. You're in
Right,
my place,
that's right, and that's why we're
if
here.
somebody buys it, that they can do whatever they want to it. That's not the case.
any business that wants to go up there has to come back to this board with a plan.
Right.
And it
And
has
we
to be
approve or-
Hang on just a second, please, just let me finish. This board either approves or disapproves. If they disapprove it, that's a done deal. That business cannot go in there, ever. And chances are, I would say probably, and John, maybe you back me up in this, I don't know, 95 to maybe even as much as 100%. If it gets turned down, that company doesn't own that land anyways. They would submit a prospectus. We want to buy 5 acres of the land for this purpose.
Because they'd be wasting their money.
Well,
Exactly.
in the beginning,
Exactly.
it sounded like take the land, subdivide it, and we're trying to attract. So then, attract companies. Not necessarily knowing. It sounded like subdivide it, sell the property, then they're gonna come before us and say what they wanna do with the property. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't buy a piece of property unless I knew what I could do. But I felt like the ball was like trickling away from selling the property, now it's on us to decide. Those people would have already bought the property. As long as someone doesn't steamroll that. Do you see where they wouldn't, they'd be sure by us what they can do there.
It's gotta be all pending.
Nobody, I would hope, but big business, I don't know, you know?
It sounds to me like we have some checks and balances. It sounds like our planning board is looking out for us. To me, right now, that's what it sounds like.
Yes, they are.
A few months ago, I thought we already owned it. Like, you're already getting whatever those sludge,
Yeah, but we
lagoon, crazy.
We
Yeah,
questioned
well,
So it worked. It was
Yeah,
effective.
it worked, yeah.
it was scary.
A little messy,
to live
but
here.
Yeah, we're really well messy, yeah.
Very effective.
Yeah. Thank you.
Who determines the price of the property?
Actually, between the IDA and the county, they determine the price.
As well as any pilot programs that happen.
Along with the IDA's, yeah.
So the
standard
county sells it to the IDA, is that correct?
Yes.
So, but it's also, this is the part I get confused with, is IDA is part of the county,
Yes.
but the money will go back into Madison County. IDA will purchase it and it goes into the county. Correct? Will it go for?
No.
No.
IDA don't purchase it, they just turn it over to them.
No, they-
In essence, the IDA sells it for the county.
In essence.
In essence.
I mean, it's,
Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna give, see, that's where I got confused.
So the chain of title is going to go from the county, to the
To
Madison County IDA,
Correct.
to the Grant Facilitation Corporation, from the Grant Facilitation Corporation to the businesses which want to purchase the
And that's where
property.
you get the finances from it.
yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I would also like the message to go back that, you know, we want to be part of, in the selection process, or at least suggesting types of units that come in.
Sure.
That can utilize the energy and is a good fit.
And make that message clear.
Yeah.
To that end, if I can just make a suggestion. So I've gone to the last 3 solid waste and recycling committee meetings. I've been the only one from Lincoln there, including the absence of our town supervisor. They don't know, but they're really willing to talk to us. I can tell you my experience, especially at the last 2 meetings I went to, has been very positive. They're willing to communicate with us. They want to hear our opinions and what we think of what's happening up there. It's just a matter of going and sitting there. They let me pull a chair right up to the table last month, in July actually. And that was really great. And a couple of the supervisors who sit on the board, Eva Schwartz from Hamilton, as well as Margaret Millman Barris, actually took time afterwards to have extended conversations about the town of Lincoln, and were interested in what we thought. And I think if someone can at least go and attend those meetings, or a couple of people can go and attend those meetings, and maybe even if 1 or 2 of you gentlemen from the planning board could go, it would be really helpful. Because I think that they are looking for some feedback, and if there's just silence, then they have no idea what we want, and we don't know what they're doing. And again,